Let's all look at this dragon.
Let's all look at him. He's picking
Yeah.
Who is that?
John. He says go ahead.
Really? Go ahead. Gosh, I'm shocked at how many people showed up. I was talking to Brian McWhorter, our farmer, this morning out by the greenhouses, and I said, if 3 people show up, we'll have a great, conversation. So 3 people are here. My name is Larry Nakata, and I'm with Town and Country, and I'd like to welcome you all to Middlefield Farm. Before I forget to tell you, we chose the name for the farm because Nakata in English means middle field.
Oh.
And it's not like us to ever put our name on anything, those of you who know us well.
Right.
But we thought there was just such a resonance with that name that why not call it Middlefield. And it's ironic too that our farm is so close to the baseball fields, which have been here for 50, 60 years. And some people think, oh, you must be near the middle field. So anyway, that's our little secret that we've kind of kept close to the vest for the last 7 years or so since we started farming here. And now that well, I think ever since we put up the greenhouses, that really started to pique some interest in the community because, as you know, Wyatt Way is such a well-traveled road. And so I'd like to take us back to 1999. Actually, I'll start at the beginning. The property that we're standing on is the original 15 acres that Grandpa Nakata was able to acquire in America. This is 1924. And what a great honor for all of us to be standing here today, 88 years later after he acquired the property. I think he would be really happy. In 1924, Japanese were not allowed to own property, or Japanese immigrants were not allowed to own property in America. And so it was through a friend that Grandpa was able to first acquire the property, not on paper, but we'll do it this way, which I understand was done several times, but a member of the Nakata family, which is well known here on Bainbridge Island, Kay Nakata, who worked for us as a checker for a million years. Her husband, Sam, his family was able to sign for the property. And then when my grandfather's oldest son, John Nakata, who was one of the founders of Town and Country, sorry if I'm confusing you, when he turned 21, because he was born in America, therefore a naturalized citizen, that's when the property actually transferred over. So 1924, the turn of the century, this was actually a strawberry farm and owned by a family called the Sumiyoshis. We never did know them, but they farmed here for many, many years. And the property came for sale when they decided to move back to Japan. And at that time, in 1924, Grandpa, along with his, actually there were 10 children that Grandma and Grandpa had, 7 of which actually made it through their infant years. Three girls, I think, passed away. So there were actually 7 kids, including not only my Uncle John, who I mentioned earlier, but also my dad, Mo Nakata, who was also one of the original founders of Town and Country many, many years later. So at that time, let's see, Grandpa Nakata came over from Japan around 1894, I think. And his very first job was to work at the Port Blakely Mill, which at that time was the largest mill west of the Mississippi, at least, if not the whole country. And that's a whole other story. But that mill brought so many people from all over the world, from all over the world, to find a better life here in this country. And so that's where he started. But once he got here, his dream was to always do something more. And so we really credit, in our family, we credit our grandpa for being the real entrepreneur of our family. And over time, he left the mill and opened up a bathhouse, barbershop, and laundry, a mega corporation along Winslow Way. And it was really, you know, you had to do a lot of different things, I think, in order to make a living. And so he eventually bought this farm. This is how I understand it. He and Grandma eventually bought this farm with the idea that someday they would move here. So for a while, you know, they did not live here. They still lived in Winslow underneath the old Town and Country Market. So I don't remember exactly what year, I don't know exactly what year he moved the family out here to this farm. Now that house there that you see, that's the new house, which is about 60 years old. The original house was here around the turn of the century, and that's the house, that's the location where Grandma and Grandpa moved their families, or their kids here. And yeah, so right now the house, this whole property that we're on now, is owned by Town and Country Markets. Okay. My brother Ron and his wife Sue own a house behind those trees, and that was our family. So there was John and Mo, which I'll mention again, John and Mo plus 5 other kids in the family. But our dad was named Mo and Saw Nakata. And the Japanese custom was that when the parents pass away, the oldest son inherited the assets of the family. And so that was Uncle John, okay? And so somehow my dad, or my dad got a little piece of property on that corner, and that's where we grew up. That, you know, Mom and Dad got married right after the war, 1945, December of 1945, and I was born in September of 1946. And so really this is the only place, you know, this is where I started myself. And let's see. So Uncle John and Auntie Pauline inherited all the rest of this property. And it was really during the Depression time that this property became very, very important to the family because it helped feed our family too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course, the war broke out. Everybody knows that story, and you know, everybody left. My dad, however, was in the 442nd. I was able to serve in that. And my mother was a Cora, and that's another familiar name, Bainbridge Islanders, Cora Farms. And Mom and Dad were sweethearts at the time. She was in high school when the evacuation occurred. And I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but I want to mention her because she was one of the cub reporters for Walt Woodward during World War II. And so she would write back to the Bainbridge Review to talk about life in camp. And I know for a fact that it was when she was in camp that she would write about the other Japanese soldiers that were fighting in Europe. And she wrote this little article, short article, it's in the archives, but about a Sergeant Nakata who was injured. And this was her future husband that she was writing about. And in the same article she wrote about her oldest brother, Art Cora, who was also injured. So I kind of trying to feel what she must have felt when she was writing this story from camp about that. Anyway, gosh, there's a family and that took care of the property during the war, and a Filipino family. And I don't know a whole bunch about them, but certainly we're so indebted to that family for watching over the property during that time.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now?
Of course. 7 years ago, let me preface it a little bit. So when our grandparents passed away, our Uncle John inherited the property. And so when they were thinking about who were they going to give it to, they ended up giving the property to their children. There were four of my cousins. Okay, that was Don Nakata, who I'm sure many of you know, and his three brothers. And it was in about 1999, that our four cousins were talking about what are we going to do with this property. And so every possibility was looked at, from developing this into transitional housing for people on Bainbridge who couldn't afford to live here any longer because of the high taxes. Maybe some small houses could be built here, and then people could transition to those houses, and then ultimately to assisted care. A lot of things, all the way up to full development like you see across the street. So that was in 1999, and suddenly in 2000, my cousin Don passed away, and everything came to a complete stop. We were all, of course, very, very, that was such a big deal for us, so we just put this whole conversation about the property aside. Now, I and my brother were included in those conversations also, not because we were owners of the property, but because we grew up on this property, as I said, in that little corner. And so that was a wonderful gift, because we were able to really be connected to the conversation. And what transpired was that in 2001, the company, Town and Country, bought the property from my cousins. And that was also a gift. I mean, they could have done a lot of different things. And we wanted to buy the property, the company, because we felt that this is where everything really started for our family, and what a great way to honor people who came before us, our grandparents, as well as ultimately integrate this into the Town and Country story. So that was in 2001, and as I mentioned, 7 years ago, we Brian McCorder, who owns Butler Farms, organic farmer, one of the original organic farmers from Oregon. He'd been selling to Town and Country Produce for many, many years, and we said, hey, how would you like to work the farm for us? And he has to this day, and so really everything that you see here is got a lot of Brian's hard sweat and tears.
What does he grow here? Do you know?
Yeah, we've actually expanded. Zucchini's really big, because it's really easy. All of you have gardens, I'm sure. So zucchini, and that's a good cash crop. We started out with sunflowers, and disappointingly to some of us, we didn't grow any this year, but I think maybe we'll grow some next year. Sunflowers that we sell in our floral departments, beans, peas, or snap peas, and 2 years ago is when we decided to build these hoop houses. We built 2 of them last year, and then 2 more this year, and maybe we'll add another 1 or 2 next year. So we're taking it incrementally, certainly learning as we go, and those 4 houses represent about 12,000 square feet, which we can see, and we've been growing tomatoes in those greenhouses, and they've been really, really great this year. We also grew some Japanese cucumbers, a couple rows of that. That's really, I don't know if any of you have tried. They're small, but boy, those are great salad things. So hopefully we'll be able to grow some of those next year as well. The tomatoes, we had multiple varieties, heirlooms, to something called Mountain Magic, which are my favorite, about this big, and all the way to the little tiny cherry type tomatoes. So let's see. Do you have any other questions? I'm kind of rambling.
Do you sell to other than Town and Country?
Yeah, well, we've been selling to our other stores, but unfortunately, we can't keep up with the demand. And so the Kitsap stores have been getting most of the product. When we have enough, they also go to our 2 central markets in Seattle as well as our Ballard market store.